everything that you needed with the car.
Yeah, basically just like every time the air conditioning or heat turned on, it would just make this like really concerning sound. Um,
Perfect.
so I figured I should probably get it looked at. And it was just like, I don't know, something got knocked out of place or something. They were easily able to fix it. So
Okay, good. I'm glad there wasn't anything too bad that has to detriment out of pocket and anything. So
yeah, that's always the worst. So
you never know with cars, and then some places will just rip you off, and then it's just I never I hate dealing with cars.
me too. So
But it's all right.
yeah. Cool. Well, how's it been going this week?
Been going all right. I've been kind of just more doing cars, focus and kind of figuring out the different like just ways to approach cars mainly since that was more of the focus this week because I kind of want to get that situated. And I think from what I figured from the couple times that I have been from the past week is even though like ideally you shouldn't be spending more than 5 minutes on the passage, but I think it helps to go through the mapping like we did last time and to really solidify the understanding for each paragraph and also tying it back to the author's tone. And it seems as though that even it's not ideal to spend so much time, it's still beneficial. And it seems that as though that the only times where I need to refer back to the passage is for like quotes or just very nitpicky things that you wouldn't think to write down because you don't know what they're going to ask. So I think that has been beneficial. And I think even though it's a lot right now, that's like your 6, 7 minutes on the passage, it's just, I'm guessing it's going to get faster over time anyway, the more that I do them. And
Mhm.
maybe even, I don't know, just like acronyms or not necessarily writing out the whole thing. So that's more going to be on me on how can I write it the way that I will understand, but not necessarily make it extra long or take too much time to write it out.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's a good strategy. If like I feel like that might be then where your time's better spent. Because honestly, I feel like once you get into the questions, like you sort of know what the questions are asking and like where they're headed. It's just if you kind of misunderstood the premise for the question, obviously that's gonna not
yeah,
you're not gonna be able to kind of get that question right. So I think
right.
that's a good strategy.
Because a lot of it will be more of that like comprehending in the material and then also like more of those reasoning beyond the passage is literally more of do you understand in order to apply to something new? And then
Mhm.
also the reasoning within the text is a hit or miss, whether it's going to be actually like context clues or some other way that they make it more broad than specific. So those can be very just a wide range of how specific they can get.
Mhm.
But I rather get a whole, like understand what I'm reading and then I can get an idea and then go through questions. Because once I go through the questions, it seems more straightforward. Especially being able to flat out knock out 3 of the 5 questions because those are all about tone or the general idea versus and then going back to the specifics or needing to see well which one would the author disagree with and then finding that correlation of what the author would you know side with. So a lot of like the author perspective questions are last and then everything else is done first. And it seemed like even when I did some of the cars passages from that one deck that you made,
Mhm.
it seemed like I was able to go through those questions in under a minute, which was easier and then worthwhile taking as much time as I can on the passage and mapping and everything.
Mhm.
But it could change over time. I don't know. But as of now, it seems like it's doable.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like that'll be a good basis. And then like also you kind of alluded to this, but it just makes like if you have to just give up and guess, like it just makes the guessing feel a little bit more Like you can hopefully feel a little bit more comfortable with guessing because you've at least got like a fairly good idea of what the heck it's talking about.
Right. Either a fairly good idea that will even lead me to elimination of other answers that are completely just whack. And if it's just the wording, that could really make it 50-50. It's kind of more of those questions. But as long as I dumb it down to the right and wrong answer, then it could be like the wording comprehension of that question that just stuck me and I couldn't figure it out. But I'd rather get to it like to that part correctly. And then if it's the wording issue, so be it. My reading comprehension is terrible anyway. But as long as I'm there, able to narrow it down, that's the goal.
Mhm.
And maybe even with the next practice test, which I think is for next Saturday, I think that will also help me to get through at least 8 of the 9 questions as well, or passages, sorry. Um, and maybe even with time, even by, I don't know, the last practice test, I could even get to all 10 passages, which would be awesome. But you know what? Working at it every day will just be more able to solidify and doing like the 301. So I want to, it just sucks with work, but I definitely want to take the time in the morning at least to use like some of the brain power, like for half an hour and just go through at least 1 or 2 passages. And then that would even be good because of that continuous. I'm rambling at this point, but
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Um, yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan.
mhm.
Awesome. Okay. Um, we can just go through then some of the questions that you had.
Yeah.
Um, yes, from your email. I'm opening it up. Do. Okay, so the first one was about like the limiting versus excess reagent.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, I can kind of just try to like re-explain it to you. I don't know if there's ever really like a shortcut.
Okay.
How I do it is like I calculate like what would the final concentration be if like this was like if we were using this reagent versus if we were using that one, and then like whichever one has a lower final concentration is
Yes.
obviously going to be your like limiting reagent. Um, so that's kind of how I would think about it, but I mean, I think it's just a question of doing it enough times that you kind of just feel comfortable with it.
Hmm.
I did pull up Khan Academy has like just a couple like stoichiometry type questions that we can kind of breeze through and maybe see if there's any that we can like find a good strategy or two for.
Hmm.
But basically, I think that the best way to approach these is to just kind of like logically think about, do you have trouble like identifying which one is the limiting reagent or excess reagent?
Yes.
Okay.
But I know like the limiting is obviously what's going to be used up first versus the excess of what's going like there's gonna
Hmm.
be more left over. But
But yeah, it's like once you get into it, it gets more complicated.
I never was good at that, not even in high school. And no matter what, it's just more of memorizing steps rather than logistics at that point.
Hmm. Well, we can just think about kind of these questions and maybe that'll be a helpful way to kind of go through it. I mean, obviously on like the most basic level with your limiting versus excess reagent, like I'm sure you feel comfortable with like if it was a 1-to-1 ratio and you're making like some product, like oops, whichever one you have less of is going to be the one that
Yeah.
is going to be the limiting reagent. But I think it's once you throw in all the like coefficients and then things are in different amounts, that's when it starts to get kind of confusing. Okay, so maybe we can just go through some of these questions and see how this goes. This talks about one type of anaerobic respiration converts glucose, C6H12O6, to ethanol and carbon dioxide, C2H5OH plus CO2. If the molecular weight of glucose is 180 grams per mole, and the molar mass of ethanol is 46 grams per mole, how many grams of carbon dioxide are produced when 1 mole of glucose is digested via respiration? Okay. So there's one like very basic step that we have to do first.
Yeah, balance.
Mhm.
So it would be glucose would have one coefficient, ethanol and carbon dioxide are both two.
And that makes sense because this would give us 6 carbons. This would give us 12 hydrogens. And then 6 oxygens. Yep. Okay.
Now it's saying how many grams that we would need for carbon dioxide for 1 mole.
Mhm. So we can kind of start with, we know that we have to do all of our conversions in moles.
Yeah.
So we can kind of start at this point right here where we know we have 1 mole of glucose. So now we can say how many moles are we going to have of ethanol and how many moles are we going to have of carbon dioxide?
Well, it's already. Mm. Oh, we need. Oh, I don't. We need the molar mass, don't we? For all of these.
For carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Well, we can also think about the fact that this is going to be a gas.
Oh, all right.
How many grams of,
Good point.
no, never mind. No, we need the molar mass. That was if it was liters, if it was volume, we would think about
Oh, yeah.
gas conversion. But I assume you were able to fill in here that this would just be like 2 and 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 2 moles of carbon dioxide, and it's basically just asking us how many grams is that?
Yep. Let's see, 36, 12, carbon's 12, so that's 48. So 48 times 2, 96. No, it's not. It's 44. 88.
Yeah,
My math wrong. I thought, never mind. I always
it
think
was
that
32.
oxygen is 18 because I always screw up that of the valence and everything because I always associate oxygen with 8 for some reason. That would screw me up.
Mhm. Awesome. Okay, and then obviously the limiting reagent there would have to be glucose because that's the only reagent that you're starting with. So,
The less amount, at least. Yeah.
okay, here we go. This is sort of almost a limiting reagent thing. This is just like finding exact quantities. So we have calcium hydroxide interacts with hydrochloric acid in the stomach to form inert calcium chloride and water. So first I'm thinking calcium hydroxide. We obviously need that guy. Plus hydrochloric acid, HCl, to form CaCl2 plus H2O. If the molar mass of this is 75 grams per mole, how many moles of HCl are required to fully react with 150 grams of CaOH2. Okay. Couple things going on here, but obviously we've got to go to our first step.
Balancing. Basically, all of the coefficients will have 2. So it's still a 1-to-1 ratio, but everything has to be 2.
So, like each of these is 2?
Yeah.
Okay, is that still gonna balance out? If we do 2 here.
The point. Never mind. Hold on. Hold on a minute. So we have. Oh, never mind. Yeah, we're fine. So 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, that's what I got. 1, 2, 1, 2. Cool. And that should balance out. Okay. So we know here for every 1 mole of this reagent, we're going to need 2 moles of this reagent. So when we're converting, we basically just got to turn our grams to moles and then multiply by 2. I like to set these up in a very like equation type manner, or like canceling out. So like 150 grams times 75 grams per mole. And that's mole of like CaOH2
2 moles.
times 1 mole of CaOH2 to 2 moles of HCl.
So just 4.
Yeah. 150 divided by 75 is 2, right?
Yep.
Cool.
So then we have 4 moles of HCl. And now we need to use, oh, JK, never mind, that's it.
Back, there we go.
Yeah, never mind, that's it. I thought there was a 1 more step, but never mind.
Yes, that is it. So in this case, there is no limiting reagent or excess reagent because you've got equal, like exactly what you need for both of those.
Excuse me. Yeah.
We could think about like with this ratio here, if this ratio, so this is like 1 to 2, right? This should be twice as much HCl as there is CaOH2. If this ratio is any less than that, say it's like 1 to 1.5, anything like that, that means that HCl is our limiting reagent. So if it's not double or more, this is the limiting reagent. If it's anything more than that, 1 to 3, then this is our limiting reagent.
Yeah.
So I guess you could also kind of think about it in that sense in terms of the ratio is like, is this a bigger ratio than like exactly at equilibrium, or is it a smaller ratio? And if it's a smaller ratio, we're going for the one that has a lower coefficient. And if it's a bigger ratio, we're going for the one with a bigger coefficient.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. How do you feel about these types of questions?
Or how much percent, oh, this is defined in empirical formula. They're fun.
Yeah.
So X HY OZ with 36%, 6%, and 38%. All right. Was it 12, 1, and 16, right?
12, 1, and 16. Yep.
So then we have 36 of 100 representing their 100 grams. was the total. Six out of 100. Bless you. 48. So then each one for carbon, that's 12 grams of X. This is the part now. Is a systematic error supposed to be taken into account now or later? Or is that irrelevant?
I don't actually know because I've never seen this come up in a question. I
Agreed.
think you can ignore it. Let me just see. Okay.
That's
That's
what, yeah,
oh,
just now, yeah.
we already got there. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're just doing it like that. Like just getting the ratios. So, because that's what
Okay.
you kind of had that already, right? Because you said carbon was 12.
12, yeah, because there's 36 grams and there's 12, so obviously we're gonna have 3 moles. And then we have 1 mole of hydrogen, which is 1.008, but we're gonna add that to 1, 6 moles. And then 48 divided by 16, which equals a little between 2 and 3. Wait, 32, yeah, 3 moles. So now if you want the empirical formula, we need to do the most simplest. So, well, oh yeah, you basically just said it, yeah.
I wrote it, yeah, but I guess it doesn't even give you like 3, 6, 3 as an option.
No, so you are, yeah, because that would be molecular instead of empirical, because molecular can be whichever amount,
Mhm. Awesome.
as long as the ratio is the same.
2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1. Okay, this is now the opposite of that, where it's giving you the ratio. And then it's asking if the molar mass is 180, which of the following would give the molecular formula. I don't know if you have a trick to approaching these, but I just kind of like guess and check.
That's what I do too with these questions.
Yeah, because this would just be like 12 plus 2 plus 16. And I'm like, that's definitely not 180.
Yeah,
Um,
6 times 12, 72 plus
you can even
12.
eliminate, like some of these don't even have the right ratio.
Oh, wow, I didn't even realize that. Good point. Yeah, there's B then. Yeah. There's always with some of these questions, there's always like you can eliminate if you just pay attention to the question and then work it out, you can rule out half of them.
Mhm. Yeah, that
Well,
could always be a good first step to like actually check the ratios. Then you don't even have to actually do the like math for 4 of these. You can just like narrow it down.
that's what I do with the balanced equations because you need to double check if they're balanced, and if they're not, then what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Here's your gases.
Okay, here we go. We got avocado, and they're nice, and they gave us the number of 22 liters. How many grams of carbon dioxide are produced in the complete reaction of 44 liters of butane with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide at STP?
So we need to balance. So we'll just put a 2 in front of oxygen and a 2 in front of carbon dioxide.
Okay, so
But no, JK, we need to add water, don't we?
yeah, you got there. I was gonna say this is a combustion, like pretty much setting up a perfect combustion reaction, and there's one thing that we need because there's hydrogen on this side, but not on this side.
Obviously, yeah. Oh, that just makes it even more ugly. Okay, fine. Not H2O, H2, right? Yeah. Well, no, yeah, it's hydrogen gas.
Oh, sorry, it's H2O. Yeah, I wasn't trying
Oh,
to erase that. I'm not trying to make you overthink. That's
Okay, because
being
we're all
pushed.
prone to, because we're all know how I will be.
No.
Okay.
Any combustion reaction is like, this is just
Carbon
your
dioxide
like
and
hydrocarbon plus oxygen gives you carbon dioxide plus water.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was me like accidentally erasing it.
You're so fine. Either way, we need to balance this jargon. So carbon, there's 4. We need, why did I? So there's 3 and there's 2. So
You want a quick trick for this?
sure.
I mean, I don't know if it's that much more of a trick. I always balance the oxygen last because
Yeah.
that's kind of your excess reagent. Like you just kind of figure it out. So I typically balance carbons first.
Right.
So I just said 4 here. And
Yes.
then balance hydrogens. So I said 5 here.
Right.
And then this part is exactly balanced, and we just have a ton of oxygen left over. And so this is just going to be 8 oxygens plus 5 oxygens would give us 13. Except 13 over 2, we can't have like 13 oxygens from this equation. So then I just multiply everything by 2. So C4 H10 times 2. This is now, we have 13 oxygens. We have 8 CO2, and then we can just double check this to make sure that those numbers still match up. Where we have 8 carbons, 20 hydrogens, 8 carbons, 16 oxygens plus 10,
26.
20, yeah. 26, yes. I did that math wrong. There we go. Something didn't work. And it's that 18 times 8 times 2 is 16. Okay. I'm just going to kind of erase this part up here just to give us more space. Okay, not as fun coefficients. But we know we have 44 liters of butane, and this is basically our limiting reagent here because we know that oxygen's just floating around in excess. And we want to find how many grams of carbon dioxide are going to be produced.
Well,
So we have kind of 2 separate conversions here. The first one is going to be like 22 liters per mole. And then the second one is going to be like grams per mole of the substance that we're looking at, which in this case is CO2.
yes.
So one thinking in terms of like the volume the gas is occupying, the other thinking in terms of just like the molecular mass of the gas.
Yep.
Awesome.
44 liters times 22 liters for 1 mole. Did it give us the molar mass? Well, that's not nice. Okay.
Do we need the mole? Oh, I was of CO2 you were asking?
One mole. Yes. Wait. 1 mole of butane, 20 pressure, 1 mole of butane. No. JK. Butane. This is 2 moles of butane to 8 moles of CO2. Oh, I guess CO2 is easy. Never mind. 1 mole CO2. What do we have? That's 12 plus 16, 16, 48 grams. Sir, may I help you? Yes, may I help? 44 times 20 divided by 2. 8 times 48. I did not do it right. No, I did. That's what I have. Yeah.
Did you get the same thing where you were?
Yeah.
44 times. It's not an exact.
Yeah.
Perfect. This one's nice too because it says that we're starting with 2 moles. So we're basically starting like with this equation balanced. So we can just say if this is 2, then we know this will be 8. We don't even need to think much further than that. But you could always know this is going to be times 4, whatever this number is. But in this case, fairly easy. Okay. I want to find a limiting reagent question. But let's do this one just because it has atoms and I think that could be helpful. Okay.
Should
This
it
is
be Cl2?
NaCl. I mean, if it's sodium chloride, sodium is, do we have a periodic?
It's saying react with chlorine gas. And since it's a group 7.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I thought you were saying it should be like NaCl2, and I was like, no, no.
Oh.
But yes, no, you are actually totally correct.
Okay.
So we do need to balance it.
So 2, 1, 2.
Perfect. Okay, now we can kind of set up our canceling out equation. So we have atoms. The first step is generally to convert atoms to moles.
Mhm.
Do you remember how many atoms are in a mole?
6.02 times 10 to the 23rd.
Mhm. So you can kind of see they set this up for the math to be nice for you.
I know. Do I have that actually though? But then there's 2 moles. That also gives 2 moles.
Okay, where'd you get to?
I got 120.
Perfect. Easy stuff. I love when they make the math easy on you.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, this is sort of thinking about This is a good one, I think, because it'll be slightly tricky. Very abstract. AX plus BY to CZ, where capital letters denote the reactants and lowercase letters denote balanced coefficients. A is less than B. Which of the following formulas gives the number of Z molecules produced when 4 moles of Y react completely? N is Avogadro's number. Okay, well, let's rewrite this. We've got AX plus BY equals CZ. And it's asking how many molecules of Z do we get? And we're starting with 4 moles of Y.
Okay, so 4 moles of Y. We then have 1 mole of Y gives you 1 mole of Z. Therefore, no, C moles. Wait, 4 moles. Okay, B moles of Y gives C moles of Z. 1 mole of Z equals 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. So then it'll be 4N times C over B.
Yeah, so C?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I kind of liked, I sort of wrote it out as you were talking, but yeah, just like canceling out moles of Y, canceling out moles of Z, and then you're getting in the end the number of molecules.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, let's see, I might have to skip 1 or 2. Okay, here we go. This is a limiting reagent question. So first we'll write out our equation, we'll identify the limiting and the excess reagents, and then we will do the calculation.
R is oxygen.
Sorry, what'd you say? Can you say it again?
Oh, we need to balance it.
Mm-hmm.
But then your limiting would be oxygen.
Let's balance first. What would you balance?
2, 1, 2.
2, 1, 2. Okay. So just ignoring this second half, let's just look at this first half here. We kind of were talking about that ratio, remember, where you need 2 moles of hydrogen for every 1 mole that you need of oxygen. So you need more hydrogen. If this number is less than 2, in this case it's 1, it's a 1-to-1, that means that you don't have enough of this reagent. Whereas if this number was greater than 2, if we had a 3-to-1 or something like that, we would have enough of this reagent, but not enough of that reagent. So you want to basically keep it so that you have 2 to every 1. If we only have 1 mole of hydrogen, then we're only actually using 0.5 moles of O2, meaning that we have excess oxygen in this case. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So we can almost write it out as if we had 1 mole of hydrogen, we would only use 0.5 moles of oxygen. Since we have 1 mole of oxygen, that means we have like literally 0.5 extra moles floating around. We could also write it around the other way as if we have 1 mole of oxygen, we need that to react with 2 moles of hydrogen.
Mhm.
and we don't have 2 moles of hydrogen. So this is definitely like limiting us. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. So we can use our limiting reagent. We can use the H2 and just pretend that we're using 1 mole of H2. That's the max we can do with this equation. What do we now get when we have this equation here?
Half. So 1.
1?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Oh, there's another question.
Mhm.
I don't actually know this one.
Let's say A.
Empirical formula and molecular formula.
They're identical because they're similar. As in, I mean, there'll be ratios of each other in same compounds.
I think it would be this. That's kind of what you're saying, equal to or greater than, because it can be equal to or it can be in ratio. Okay, we don't care about that. It's just trying to find the limiting reactant.
We're told
We'll just do this. And then we can double check our answer, I suppose. Okay. I don't care if it's 1 energy point. Go away.
old method.
Okay. With methanol, CH3OH, which is used as a fuel for racing cars and in fuel cells, can be made by the reaction of carbon monoxide and hydrogen. It looks like it's already balanced for us, which is very nice. Suppose 356 grams of CO and 65 grams of H2 are mixed and allowed to react. So we're going to be finding what is the limiting reagent, what is the excess reagent, and then what is the mass left over once the limiting reagent has fully reacted.
Okay. So our limiting is hydrogen.
So the one thing I'll say with limiting versus excess,
I hate this.
that you always have to compare in moles.
Are we not in moles? Oh, I guess. Oh, I see what you mean. Never
We're
mind.
looking at grams. So compare in moles. Because yeah, if you had like equal amounts of each, the limiting factor would be hydrogen, but we don't necessarily know how much we have of each.
So about 30. Nine? No. Mm, mm.
What were you saying for these?
I'm I just don't remember if it's best to leave them in decimal or not.
We can just kind of approximate. This one's easy
Yeah.
to leave in decimal. For this one, I'd probably just round. Because what's this? About like 12,
Yeah, I was gonna say about 11 or 12.
12.7. I think that's fine. 356, and it was 28, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we have that many moles and that many moles. Okay, rethinking back to our equation. For every 1 mole of CO, we need 2 moles of hydrogen. So if we have 12.7 moles of CO, then we need 24, 25 something moles of hydrogen. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that there's extra hydrogen here. Because we only need 24 to react with 12. However, if we were to say, let's do it from the perspective of you have 32.5 moles of hydrogen, then you would need 16 something moles of carbon monoxide, and we don't have that, which makes this one limiting. Does that make sense? Where you can kind of just say like, what would happen if,
The ratio and everything.
yeah. So like basically just say like, if this is my limiting reagent, like what would I need from the other one? And if it's more on the other one, like that one obviously has excess, but if it's less, then that one is going to be limiting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we can go forward with this and see how many moles of methanol are going to be produced.
Does it matter? Well, is it minimal? Or is it like what can be used?
It would be max. So that means you would have to use pretty much all of your limiting reagent.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to double check. Okay. So then. Okay, I'm Googling this because I didn't really. Okay, the molar mass of CH3OH is 32.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wrote this out as just 12, and then there's 4 hydrogens plus 4 plus 16. So 20 plus 12, 32.
Why didn't you do 2 moles of H2? Well, this will be interesting for me to do. Like, hold on. Right. No. Color. Okay. Like here, why is it not 2 moles since this is 2?
Yeah, so basically what I did was we're looking just in terms of CO, right? So we said if our limiting reagent is CO, we have 12.7 moles of CO.
Oh, wait. Oh my God. Never mind. Sorry. I realized. Wait a
Okay.
minute. Wait. Oh, never mind. I was reading at it differently. Never mind. I was looking at hydrogen clearly. Never mind.
Yeah, because does that make sense how like the limiting or excess reagent can change, obviously depending on how much or how little of something you have?
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. Whatever. This is 1 mole. CO. Okay. That's 1. Okay, 12 times 32 or 13 times 32. I don't want to. We'll basically need to do 13-ish times 32. It's 2, 9, 3, 596-ish.
Wait.
JK. 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 I can't do math right now, apparently. Okay, 416. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how much we have if we use all of our limiting. Now, that's the mass that can be produced. Now it's asking how much is going to be left over, right? So don't we take the difference between, like we take the difference of 12.7 times 2, which is what, 24? And then take the difference between 32.5 and 24, which is relatively 8 or 9, and then use that to convert to grams of hydrogen.
Exactly. I'll just say it's 12.7, so it's closer to 25. But yeah, same idea. 7.
But then so would it be 6 grams? Or would it be 12?
So we'd have 7 moles of hydrogen of H2. And we know that the molecular weight is for 2 hydrogens would be like 2.02, right?
Okay, so okay. But it would still be 1 mole because it's H2.
Yeah, this has not been converted into anything. This is not because it can't react with anything more, so it's still just in the form of H2.
Okay, so 14 grams is left over, because that's what you need to find the difference. Okay, so it's really just identifying that ratio is how much can we make or how much will we have left over because of like basically what you were explaining earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would approach it like that. And then I would also say like, okay, if I had 1 mole of hydrogen, I would need 0.5 moles of CO. Do I have more or less than that? And then that more, if it's more, that one's excess. If it's less, that one's limiting. So you can kind of approach it from either side, but basically just think like, what if I had this much of this reagent, how much would I need of the other reagent? And do I have more or less than that? Okay, cool. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll just double check this. We definitely rounded quite a bit, and so it would be easier when, see if I can exit out here. It will be easier when you have multiple choices. We don't have to worry about it as much.
Technically, we are taught to round, so we kind of have to.
Yeah. So we talked, yeah, this was 406 because they didn't round. That's if you don't round 12.7 to 13, you get 406 instead of 416, but we got similar enough. And then ours was, what did we say? We had 14 something left over. They also kind of rounded. So we got the same things. It's just slightly different rounding that they use. They rounded slightly less.
Well, you can't please everyone.
Yes. However, we got the idea.
Yes.
Okay. So then the other idea that came up was, oh, I can't clear that. I think that might be yours. The other idea that came up was
Okay.
imprint genes.
Yeah, there was a question about it on
The
the
AMs.
exam. Okay, I don't know why. There it is. Okay, I was trying to erase that earlier and it didn't let me, but there you go. There's no pink square anymore. Yeah.
Okay. So the best way I can think about imprinted genes is basically just to say you carry the gene technically, but it's completely repressed and unexpressed. So just to think about it in terms of like something that you have that's almost just like an imprint, like an artifact, and it's not actually expressed or playing a role.
Because even the way that the AI said it was a gene whose expression is determined by the parent that contributed it. So it's like, but it doesn't say what determines the expression and also by the parent that contributes it. Because then it's also saying like, well, how is it then displayed like on a male gene? Because if it's recessive, it's always going to be expressed, but then it's, I don't know, or it's just more of it's a gene there, but it's not necessarily active or inhibited. It's just present.
Um,
I don't know.
Basically what I would say is, I don't know if the AI just like didn't give a great explanation. Let me pull up the question. What
Do you
we
know
were,
what question number it is? I can
yeah.
look. Okay.
Here. For the hereditary transmission of SDH-linked paraganglioma in a parent-specific manner. Okay, I think this is probably the best way to explain it. Imprinted genes are parent-specific based on inherited epigenetic modifications. If the gene is methylated and off in the parent, it will be off in the offspring. Basically, you can imagine genes are like in the most simplistic manner can be in the on or off position. And it's basically just saying imprinted genes are the ones that are passed down in that same on or off position with epigenetic modifications.
Okay.
So if it's silenced in a parent, it can be silenced in the child because they've inherited that epigenetic modification. So maybe the best way to think about it is like an imprinted gene, like a gene is going to have some kind of like epigenetic footprint, right? Like some tag hanging off of it, some like we can think like a methylation marker, whatever other potential post translation or like epigenetic modifications there are. Basically just saying that when epigenetics get passed on, that is imprinting. Like you're inheriting that same footprint, that same epigenetic like mutation as the parent.
Can it change in the offspring or because it was genetically inherited? Well, no, that doesn't matter. Well, can it change its expression? Like, can it be turned on in the offspring?
I mean, it could be, yes. I think it would be like for these, if it says something is imprinted, then you can assume it's the same. But environmental factors can change, like genetic expression can change, all that kind of stuff, and potentially even the other allele. But if it's saying like this is an imprinted gene, you can say, okay, this is the same epigenetic modification.
As it was in the parent. Okay.
It wasn't-
So it's literally that hereditary factor of this is what it was in the parent, this is how it will be in the offspring firsthand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So probably just thinking about that, like, yeah, hereditary epigenetics. And epigenetics will be why it's like on versus off. Okay, and then you had a question about the pedigrees. That was
No,
question.
it's like low and like there are so few, but there was that one question that popped up out of all of the full lengths, that would explain, and like you needed to go through what pedigree tree, and I mean, it was listed on the guide of, needing to understand it, but
Oh, question 6. There we go. I was like, this is not the right. Here we go. Based on the information in the passage, what is the most likely mechanism of inheritance for HPRCC? So I always double check that, like, because sometimes they'll like give you a hint in the passage, but I don't think it tells us that anything about.
I don't think it did.
Exon 16 of MET. Normal kidney tissues have 2 copies of the chromosome carrying the head MET gene. Okay, yeah. So we can just take a look at the pedigree. I like to start from, I kind of just like pick out weird examples. So I see like this is a case, this is a good case right here. Because you have 2 people that are both affected.
Yeah.
If this is a dominant gene, all their kids would have to be affected.
Agreed.
So I know I can immediately cross off A.
But it is A.
It's A.
Yeah.
It's A.
I'm like 90% sure it's A. Yeah. I know, that's why I picked B. Because I was like,
What in the world? Oh. Well, that's stupid. Okay, I see how it works. Okay, just kidding. I take back everything I said.
sounds good.
Restarting.
Sounds
I
good.
see why you were thrown. How do I unstrike through? There we go.
Square one.
Okay. If these 2 people are affected, let's restart. Sometimes I think that like the best way to go through this would just be to like write out what the genotypes would look like if it was one of these, and then see if the offspring match up. So the first thing we can look at would be like, if this is Y linked, a Y linked recessive, or a Y linked inheritance, only men would be able to be affected, right? So I think we can pretty easily eliminate that because we know that there is an affected female.
Right.
Okay. So this is we can easily eliminate this one. Okay. Now we can look at kind of these other options. I'm going to go back to this case that we saw of these 2 weird parents. Let's imagine what this would look like with an autosomal recessive and what this would look like with X-linked recessive. So if it's autosomal recessive, that would mean that both the parents would have to be AA and little a, little a, little a, little a, right? Meaning that all their kids would also only be able to be little a.
So they would be
2
infected.
recessive people have a child, their kids also have to be all recessive. So that just doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I should have jumped to as my first conclusion. Let's think about now if it's X-linked recessive. So we know that if it's X-linked recessive, an affected female, in this case, would be X little a, X little a, and then an affected male would be X little a, Y.
Right.
So this can be our couple right here. 1 and 2. All of their kids then are going to have to be what?
Also affected. Even the females and males.
There's no other possible like
Right. Which
all
is,
the possible combinations are all affected.
which is also odd considering 1 in 3 are uninfected.
So we think it couldn't probably be X-linked recessive.
Okay.
Strike that through. So now let's think about what would be happening if they were autosomal dominant, because that's honestly the only choice that we've got left here. If something is dominant, you can have a heterozygous mutation. So you can have these two parents that are both affected, but they can also have kids that are going to be a mix of, obviously, the 3 of these, which means that they would have some kids that were affected and some kids that were not affected, even though both of the parents were affected, just because they have 2 different alleles and you can possibly get a recessive trait.
Oh, so the recessive would be uninfected.
Yeah. So that would be like almost the opposite of how we always think about it. Now let's imagine big A is the illness gene.
Yeah.
You can have kids that are going to be like, most of your kids are going to be affected. You'll have big A's and like heterozygotes, but a fourth of your kids will be uninfected because they both get the recessive, like healthy gene. So I guess the best way to approach a pedigree, I would think about 1, if you ever see 2 affected individuals getting together, I would look at that situation first, because that's going to tell you a lot. An affected plus an affected will help really tell, like if their children are all affected, like that will, potentially not eliminate a lot of stuff, but it'll likely like make you think that it's pretty much a recessive gene and there's only one allele, circulating around here. And then in this weird case, if you have a mix of kids, even though both the parents are affected, clearly there has to be a mix of alleles going on here too.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would just look at is you can potentially start to think about what would sex-linked traits look like just by sketching out what the potential genotypes would be here, and then seeing if it's possible for those children to then have those genotypes.
So what were they comparing, like the autosol versus sex length stuff in the explanation?
So, let me pull up the explanation to see what they're saying. But basically, we know it has to be, like, we were basically able to eliminate the sex linked, just because we knew that, if it was sex linked, then like if it's Y linked, you can only ever have males that are affected. We already said that was clearly wrong. And if it's X linked, then like all of the girls in this situation would have to have gotten the gene because both their parents would have carried the gene. And we could just tell that that's not what's happening. Let me pull up the Jack Weston flow chart.
Yeah, but then it's like, please note this was created from the pedigree from this passage. So I'm like, then why are you explaining it if it's just pertinent to this scenario? So it's like, can I use this as like a guide for other problems, or is this just pertaining to 6?
So, I would use this limitedly. I'm going to amend this slightly. I'm going to get rid of all of this up here. Are only males affected? It's probably Y-linked.
Yeah.
I would say that's question 1. If only males are affected, it's probably Y-linked. Because if you used it in this passage, it's saying like, are males disproportionately affected? Like, honestly, just based on this family, it does look like that.
Yeah.
Because that's just like how their inheritance worked out, but we know it's actually not that way. So I would disregard that part about the proportion. I would say if it's just males affected and you can see there's like a male like lineage that's passing on the affectedness, then it's Y-linked. So that's your first question. Ignore the rest of this.
Cool.
Okay. Question 2. Well, that didn't even help because it didn't show you like how to evaluate X-linked versus Y-linked.
Just like what?
Mhm.
Like it literally.
Okay, I don't like this at all. I would just
Okay, cool. Because I liked your way of just going about it, like sticking, like literally, just like the simple, like don't even like all that they meant. Because
yeah.
your way makes sense.
So I'll like just quickly like re-summarize it then. It's basically, okay, we said no males were all males, not all male, blah, blah, blah. Females were affected, so it's not Y-linked. The next question we asked is it going to be X-linked? And if we think about it, we could try to like think about a couple situations here. So I'll just start like at the top with 1 and 2. This would be a healthy female with 2 healthy alleles and then a infected male. Their kids could either be carriers. All the girls would be carriers, right?
Yes.
And all the boys would be healthy just because none of them could get that allele from the dad.
Unless it's X-linked recessive.
So basically saying like,
Will be expressed.
if these are the 2 combinations, the possible children that they could have would be carrier or carrier or unaffected boy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which means that none of their children could possibly be sick.
Which is not the case for.
We know it's not X-linked recessive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give us X-linked dominant as an option, which is good. So we don't even need to care.
It seemed like all of like 3 of the 4 were recessive based, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so like the one thing I would think about when you're thinking about like the X-linked and stuff is if a girl gets an X-linked disorder, her mom has to be a carrier and her dad has to be affected.
I see.
Right? Because she has to get an allele from both of them. So her
Right.
mom has to at least be a carrier and her dad has to be affected. So
So
girls
recessive.
can only be colorblind if their dads are colorblind.
Makes sense.
So in this case, 1/2 of it checks out, like the dad is affected, but the mom is not a carrier in this case.
Yeah. But everyone's still affected. So like, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, and then the last one was about palindromic sequences.
I had this explained to me before and I thought I understood it. And then when I did this problem, it was obviously obvious that I didn't.
Okay. Which types of restriction enzymes can recognize the HIF binding sequence? The HIF binding sequence. HIF is a nuclear factor. So this is our binding sequence. C, 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 G, 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 C. So we know that restriction enzymes recognize palindromic sequences. You clearly already got to that. So we want to look for what possible palindromic sequences would exist inside of this sequence. So I'll just kind of zoom in over here. We know as a whole, this is obviously not palindromic, right? But I'm kind of thinking like, what are different regions of this that would be palindromic? So looking for anything that would be the same forward as it is backwards. So I see if we look at this section, that's the same forward as it is backwards. And that's 4 bases long. If we look at, this is only 3, 3's too short, just with the G's. But if we look at this section, C, G, 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 C, that seems to work. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 bases long. And then we can also see potentially C, C, C. Nope. Go back. Yeah. C, 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 G, 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 which would be 6 base pairs long. Do you see how I pulled all of those potential palindrome states
I
out?
don't see the 6. How is that? I don't get the 6.
No, I don't get it either. Just kidding.
It is an answer though, which confuses me.
Because what is it? 5 versus 6 base pair recognition system. Because we definitely got 4, right?
Yes, that's to
That
C, 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 C.
C, 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 C.
So you know it's
I
4.
think,
But then the question is it 6 or 4 only?
because I'm pretty sure the answer is also 6, right?
It is 6.
Okay, select a response.
But why?
Oh, we got to think about the complement. So let me undo this. Our sequence here is C, 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 C,
3 G's, 1 C.
3D is 1 C. Okay, so our complement's going to be
G, 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 C, 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 G.
okay. This is weird. Recognize the HIF by 8 base recognition sequence. I mean, I think we could clearly tell it's not 8. Let's see what they say. The first and last nucleotides are not complementary and are thus not a part of the palindrome. Interesting.
It just doesn't explain why though. It just says,
Yeah, I'm guessing the palindromic thing is different from what we're thinking. Because I like kind of see what it's taught. See? Okay, here we go. Okay. This is a short DNA sequence that an enzyme specifically recognizes, most restriction enzymes recognize palindromic sequences, meaning that both strands of DNA will have the same sequence when read from 5' to 3'. For example, ATTGCAAT is palindromic. And that's because if you were to read it this way, on the complement, it would be ATTGCAAT.
That's
So let me
okay.
undo this here. Basically, we're saying how many bases within this first thing here can we have, like, a repeated, if we read this way, how many bases can we get that are also the same this way? So if we were to do, let's go like this way.
But it's still 5' to 3', not 3' to 5. That's annoying.
So this could be CCGG. And we can read this guy this way, and we see CCGG.
And it's 5' to 3' anyway, so it would, okay.
Mhm.
That's annoying.
Yeah, I would draw out the original strand and then the complementary strand, and then see if you're able to get basically, like, you could even write it out, I guess, like this. So we have C, 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 G, 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 C. And then I'll even write the complementary sequence down, but like 5' to 3'. That's really messy and terrible. And you're basically looking for like any stretches of the same thing. So I see like a stretch of 3 C's and a stretch of 3 C's, but 3 is too small. I see CGGG and CGGG. I see CCCGGG and CCCGGG. So that's where I get 4 and 6 from.
My goodness.
Okay. So maybe I would do it kind of like that then. Write out 5' to 3' of the original strand and 5' to 3' of the complement, and then just look for any shared sequences between the two.
All right.
Does that make sense? Like, does that feel like it would work?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. But I guess good to know. That's what they mean by palindromic, not an actual palindrome.
Okay.
Because why?
That's why. Because the
Okay.
MCAT said so.
Because biology said so, I guess.
That's true. Because we all like biology. Biology's good.
Okay. Let's go to, I know we only have a little bit of time left. Some society sociology type questions. I kind of want to go through, did we go through these last time?
I don't think
I think we might have talked about like conflict theory or something. No, I don't think so. Okay, I kind of want to go through some of these like social structures ones, because I think those will be a good like exposure, and then we'll try to do a passage with those. Okay. Which of these would describe a research question viewed from a microsociology perspective? First big question is, what is microsociology perspective?
So you have the difference between micro and macro. Micro is more of those interpersonal relationships of people or smaller groups, small groups, society.
Yeah, daily life, people interacting, small groups, very much what you would think.
Yep.
Okay.
That would be D.
What role do people who identify as locavores?
I don't know what those
The hell's a locavore? A person whose diet consists only or principally of locally grown or produced food. Okay, cool. Oh, like a locavore. Anyways, you learn something new every day. During reading time, children are required to sit quietly and listen attentively to the story the teacher is reading. The children who are able to do this are rewarded at the end of the week with a prize. How would the functionalist perspective describe this interaction? Okay. What do we think
Functionalism
about?
has a lot of tidbits with it. So you want to have a dynamic equilibrium in society. It could be accomplished through manifest and latent functions. Basically, all equality amongst everyone.
Yeah. I also think like everything has a role.
That too. Miss that.
Everything has a role, everything has a function. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about how those different roles can interact.
Mhm.
So let's just kind of generally then think through these. Oh, it talks about latent versus manifest functions, which you mentioned, I think.
Mhm.
Do you remember the difference?
So manifest is like this is directly taught, or like this is like the goal. Like this is what, like it's direct. It's more of,
Yeah.
okay, that's all I can really, it's like
Direct,
direct versus
maybe like intentional.
intentional. Yeah. That's a good that word. And then
Mhm.
latent, it's more of behind the scenes of what you would figure out through the concept. So intention, unintentional.
Sure. Good words. Okay. So the first thing that I'm thinking about here is honestly just matching up like, is it formal? Like if they're formally learning something, do you think that's intentional or unintentional?
Um, Manifest, so intentional.
Yeah, I think this word like formally learning makes me think this one is manifest, which makes me kind of hesitant about A. And then on the inverse here, we have like they're being informally taught this. I think that would be more of a latent function.
What's latent? Got it. Yeah. And then I don't agree with B that it's matched with latent. It's not reward and punishment because that's more direct.
Mhm.
So I would think C.
Yeah, I would agree. C. Something that they're purposefully trying to do. Like this is something that they are being taught and that they're purposefully trying to do. And that's kind of the point of education is to prepare you for society. Perfect. So yeah, this was just a case of matching up intention versus manifest versus latent. Oh, whoa, I don't think you need to know these. I wouldn't.
It's Marx
Didn't he do conflict theory though?
and it's Weber. Oh, not associated? Durkheim, sorry. She did functionalism.
Sorry. No, I didn't know that. I knew it wasn't Marx.
I meant it was. I'm sorry. I read it as which of these series is a. I literally skipped not.
So the only one that I know for sure is Marx. So I don't think that's like super necessary knowledge.
That's why I was confused because I knew Weber was as well. So I was like, wait, are we? And then I just misread the question because I know Durkheim, Emily, she's functionalism.
Mm-hmm. How could a symbolic interactionist phrase a research question to investigate the relationship between medicine and education?
So now this is something regarding like interaction within society, especially like through materials or objects that is emphasizing the meaning of that interaction.
Mhm. I also think of like labels and stuff.
Yeah, That's
Like,
why I cannot
everything
see.
is symbolic, everything represents something. Sorry, which one
That's
did you say?
I'm looking at C because you literally said labels. I'm like, yeah, that would explain very well.
Yeah, I would agree. Ooh. Which of these accurately describes the perspective of strong social constructionism? So I guess first we gotta remember what social constructionism is.
Isn't that the value brought into society?
That yeah, values are made by society, like
Yeah.
everything is just made up, basically. Everything is a social construct.
Yes.
So weak social constructionism is generally like, okay, whatever, there's, certain things like we've made up race and gender and sexuality and all of this, but there's also like actual tangible things in the world. And then strong social constructionism is literally everything is a social construct.
That's why I'm like B
Exist outside of social constructs.
or C. It's either B or C, but I don't. I feel like when you were saying like I don't know what it's within social constructs, the brute facts.
So weak social constructionism says that like there is obviously stuff that we make up, but then there's also just like some facts. There is some reality. And then that would be like, okay, there are brute facts that exist, like nature, things beyond our control, whatever. Strong social constructionism says that like literally like how we perceive reality and understand these events are all dependent on social constructs. So less that there is no like independent standalone fact of like a hurricane. It's something that we have like defined and made up, and that we can only understand through our social constructs. So if we're looking from a strong social construction perspective, we're probably not looking for brute facts.
I thought facts would be okay. Facts and
Everything is a social construct, so there are no facts. That would be strong social constructionism versus
so
would be the one that's like, okay, yeah, like molecular biology is real versus the strong social constructionists would be like, well, it's only really like the way we define it and the way we understand it, it's only that way because of like the social constructs in the society we have. And like we've kind of arbitrarily like characterized and labeled and like done all of this based on a social construct.
mhm. So D.
Institutional facts such as the euro are created by social conventions. I could see that. I could also see A as well. Knowledge and language both depend on socially constructed understandings.
I feel like A is in the middle because it could be because of that reality aspect of knowledge and language. But
Yeah,
it's also
basically
like,
saying like knowledge and language are social constructs, right? Or are like we need social constructs to understand them.
yeah, I don't like social constructionism as a theory.
Um, I understand weak social constructionism, but strong social constructionism is a bit crazy. So basically what clued me in here, let me just say, is facts. So I said basically strong social constructionism, like there are no facts, everything's a social construct. is basically defining that like even these things that we think out about as like nature, beyond our control, whatever, are still things that we're only understanding like through the lens of our socialized lives and like the social constructs that we've made kind of thing. And then the other thing is like this is talking about institutional facts. I just didn't like the word facts.
Gotcha.
Social constructivism rejects brute facts, believing that everything can be explained as an interaction between social constructs. A criticism of strong social constructionism is the lack of brute facts that makes it difficult to explain certain social phenomena and acts of nature. A strong social constructionist would view money as socially constructed, but not as an institutional fact. So I think I liked the second half of the sentence where it just be like the euro was created by social conventions. But this first part that uses this like language of institutional fact is just what doesn't align there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the reason why I just liked A the best is basically just like everything is socially constructed. The end.
Reality is dependent on language and social habits.
Mhm.
As far as we agree. Which of these best describes that assumption of exchange theory perspective? I like D.
People do not actually make rational choices.
But for real though, I think C.
The more often that one is rewarded, the higher benefit associated with that choice. Yeah. I think it's just like, oh,
No!
individuals making rational, self-interested choices is an assumption of exchange theory. I mean, that makes sense. It's like economics, right? Like you want to make the most beneficial choice for yourself.
Right.
I think that makes sense to me. So people would probably be making rational choices. I would eliminate D.
So what is it, B?
The person, that action will be repeated. I guess so. I'm just curious why C is incorrect. Social interactions change over time. Rewarding actions will be repeated, but the reward diminishes over time. I guess that's what this was getting at. The more often it's rewarded, like if you reward something enough times, it kind of diminishes. Like you've been like habitualized.
Is oh, okay.
So I guess that's what that was getting at there. I kind of agreed with your thinking there, though. I understand what you meant.
Just thinking maximize benefits, minimize cost.
Yeah, I guess what the second part of that would be is that like over time you get like it's like the rat getting rewarded or whatever. Like
Yeah.
you could become desensitized to the reward. But correct line of thinking, I think that's fine. Whoa.
No, wow, that was rude.
I know, right? Like what?
I hate that. That's such a strong thing that they did. I remember when we were kids being like, blue is for boys, pink is for girls.
My least favorite thing was always when they're like, we need a strong boy to carry this chair or something. I'd be like, me.
I know, same. I did the same thing like with theater and like with crew. I'm like, we need someone to help carry this. I'm like, me. And they're like, how about we have insert guy's name? I'm like, I'm right here. Like, what? But gender stratification for this one.
Yeah, I'm potentially between hidden curriculum and gender stratification, just because hidden curriculum is like the things that you learn in schools that aren't like in the like in the curriculum or like purposefully meant to be taught, but like kind of that you're learning this gender norms through the hidden curriculum. The only thing that I was confused about with stratification was just like it's hard to see if there's like Yeah, it's hard to see if there's like some kind of actual, like there's no inequality technically.
Uh,
More
okay.
just like reinforcing a gender role inadvertently versus this could be more like, oh, girls can't be doctors, go to secretary school,
Yeah, okay.
something like that. But generally same idea.
Okay.
So this was just a more appropriate application of the hidden curriculum and like something that people are learning that's not necessarily what they were intending to learn. What the heck? I've never actually heard of this, but I'm gonna assume it's the one that has the matrilocaty.
Yeah,
If they're close by the wife's family. Interesting.
let me. Oh, you can't go back. That sucks.
I don't think I've ever seen that. Like, I don't think that's important.
Least socially accepted. I want to say cult.
Yeah.
Huzzah. Oh boy. Okay. I disagree with A
Mhm.
because of the medicalization of deviance factor.
Mhm.
And there's nothing, I don't agree with C either.
You don't agree with C either. I don't agree with A.
Good into bad or bad into sick. Wait, okay, deviance is when you're doing a behavior and then it's emphasized to become more fast or into the behavior. So we have a good. I'm leaning towards B,
Okay.
but that's because of the deviance aspect of it. But I don't know about the bad behavior normalization from the medicalization.
Mhm. So I'm thinking about what is medicalization? It's like changing the perception of something into a medical issue rather
Yes.
than a personal issue. So I like to think of like the example of alcoholism. It's changing a behavior that you thought of as like bad, immorally wrong, like the person's fault, and changing it into, this is a medical condition they have. This is a sickness that is more beyond their control. So medicalization is more of changing something that's bad into something that's labeled as like sick to help take some of that blame off of the, after the actual person and like
Okay.
just show like, hey, they're like this because this is a medical condition kind of thing.
And that's the same thing with deviance, then doing that bad to sick behavior.
Mhm. And then demedicalization would be saying like, hey, it's okay to be sick.
Yeah.
So overall, just thinking about like, instead of blaming someone like, wow, they're just a terrible person, thinking like, wow, they have a mental illness and like they're behaving like this because they're sick, but it's okay to be sick. Like, let's help them.
All right, not bad.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. So those are just a couple of the big ideas of some of these social constructs. I think like in general, they're like you're familiar with all the big terms and such. Um, I think what's hard is then like, you know, transferring these all over into a new context. So like with the question we just had about medicalization and demedicalization and just being able to like put into the most simplistic of terms, like what is medicalization? And it's kind of this connection of like turning something that was bad into something that's now labeled as sick.
There's also, I was thinking of label theory as well in like in correlation with deviance
Mm-hmm.
to guide me through that. So that's why I was kind of hesitant with B because of that like good to bad behavior.
Yeah.
Because it's not even starting with good. It's just like a not great behavior, but it's getting worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm just gonna like re-scroll through these questions really fast. This one was easy. You kind of were able to identify, okay, what's something that deals with people on a small level? Perfect. This one we just comparing latent versus manifest. This one.
Oh,
No, it's
Durkheim,
Dirk.
Durkheim.
We got it. Okay. Symbolic interactionism, we were immediately flued into like labels of interactions. I think that's the best way. It's like how do people like label, perceive something, attach value to something.
There you are.
Wrong social constructionism, facts aren't real, everything is a social construct.
Reality is
Like
based,
facts, no facts, no facts, no facts.
what was it? Reality is based on what? Language and
Which
social habits.
mhm,
No facts exist.
nothing. And we said exchange theory is going to be like economy, except that the payoff you want is your social credit. So I think this one makes sense. And then the only other aspect of this was, oh, also you can also get like habituated to rewards. And so it's not like rewards necessarily increasing over time. It's if you're getting the same reward over and over again, you know, if you're eating your favorite food over and over again, it's not like it gets better every time you eat it. In fact, you just get more like used to it and bored. We talked about hidden curriculum, which what is unintentionally taught and why that would be a better choice compared to stratification, just because we didn't actually get an example of like any kind of actual gender disparity going on here.
If there was a boy and contribute, I think that would be more like if it was like a girl and boy,
Mm-hmm.
maybe.
Yeah, and it showed like a different. This is just,
No one knows.
yeah, we'll see what they say. Yeah, patriarchal lives near the
Stuff like that.
husband.
Yeah.
Neo, you're just in a new place, you're away.
Both.
MB is both, and
Both.
matriarch. I mean, so this is just like a roots question almost. We don't like cults.
Mhm.
I don't know how much you need to know about these, but yeah, a denomination. I think these are pretty straightforward. You have like big organization, subsets are denominations, and then sects are like also breaking off. And then
Yeah.
this says an ecclesia is a religious group that includes most members of a society. So that would just be like Christianity or something. But yeah, cult's the only one there that actually has negative implications. And then we just talked about labeling things as sick. So maybe the most simple explanation would just be like medicalization is like relabeling things as sick behavior rather than like, this is your fault, this is bad.
Mhm.
Okay. I think it could be helpful if you want to mess around with any of these or if you want to do some of these like psych-social practice passages and just kind of see how those go. I think that could be a good exercise just to get through some of these terms. Okay. Sharing. I feel like our time was very fast today. How are you feeling? How is everything?
Not too bad.
Yeah, I feel like that was just a good like practice of how to review soc terms, and hopefully that can be a helpful resource to you with Khan Academy.
Mhm.
Um, I think that'll be, especially for some of those bigger theories, it's like, obviously the more like broad definitions, but do you know the right applications and contexts in which those definitions come up?
Absolutely. Yeah. Incorporating those will be helpful as well. In addition with getting as much as I can with the Panko or Dex, but again, it's more of the emphasis that I think needs to be emphasized rather than the terminology, and terminology is more like filter through.
Mhm. Exactly. Um, so I just wanted to check into because not like this upcoming week, but the week after, I'm going to be out of town for a bit.
Mhm.
So I had two potential options. One would be that we meet on Friday the 8th, and then we could next meet again on Monday the 18th. Oh, or I could find someone to like cover a session or two for that week, that I'll be out.
You said
So,
the 8th and 18th.
mhm,
That's fine.
okay. Yeah, I mean, it'll be like Friday and then like a week and then next Monday. So it's not too,
Is that your spring break?
yeah,
Where are you going?
Disney.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited
You're going with your partner or with friends?
with my partner.
That'll
So
be
it'll
good.
be nice. Just gotta like get away, take a break, which is
Have you
nice.
been before?
I have. Um, so I'm excited. I think it'll be fun.
Then it will be warmer, so that'll be good too. We'll be in shorts more and
Mhm.
short sleeves, having a good time. Now you can, well, no, did you turn 21 now or before?
I'm 22 now, so
22. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say now you have the opportunity for alcohol if you want.
yeah,
And
I was gonna say we're trying to drink around the world at Epcot, and I think that'll be very fun.
oh God, be careful.
I'm fairly picky, so I will be like drinking around the world in spirit.
And spirit. Okay, there
Yeah,
you go.
I'll just be walking around the world and then drinking occasionally.
Really. How about your partner? Are they more prone to the drinking around the world, or are they in the same boat as you?
Yeah, well, she has like a much higher tolerance than I do, so like she can drink around the world and handle it and be about where I am after like two drinks. So
Goodness gracious. I mean, props to her. Won't lie, but
yeah. Well, I'm like extra sensitive and she's like extra not sensitive. So we're like two ends of the extreme.
but that'll
Okay.
be fun though. How are
Mhm.
you driving or flying?
Flying. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like 12 or hours to drive or something like that. I'm thinking not
I
worth
don't
it.
blame you. Don't, yeah, no. But
Maybe
that'll
maybe
be
like
fun.
10, but still a long time.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, since you're going to be gone for that week, it's better to take just 2 of those 7 or 8 days just for travel.
Mhm.
But I mean, considering how far south you guys are, it might not even be that long of a flight. So you could at least do some
Like
stuff in the
like
evening.
an hour, like a 45-minute, like a very fast flight.
Oh, easy then. Then you guys can have like the afternoon or morning to chill and hang out, count it as part of your adventure days. Oh, that'd
Yep.
be so fun.
Yeah, it should be awesome. I'm excited. So excited. Also good to just take some time off. Not that my life's that crazy anymore now that everything's pretty much died down, but
No, but still, you've been like, it's one of those nice things that afterwards is that nice, like mid break, mid semester break, and then grind the rest of the way with the senioritis until graduation.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready for that. Just
I
giving
bet. Yeah.
in a good way.
I know what you mean. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Well, would you want to meet like again in the next week, or do you just want to set our next meeting for Friday? I'll just kind of like leave it up to what you think could be helpful. Or if you just want to try to like get back into the swing of things on your own.
I'm not too worried about independent studying. I'm just trying to think. I mean, I'm always up for meeting and doing passages together because they will also help to go through that. So, I mean, if you want, we can do Wednesday instead of Friday. Sorry, I have the calendar up on the monitor, so I'm looking at it. And then we can plan instead of the 8th, we could do the 6th, maybe.
Do. Um, I have something in the morning that day.
But if
Um,
the 8th is easier for you, that's completely fine with me.
yeah, I think the 8th would be easier just because I have a couple things throughout the day in the 6th where I just don't
Yeah.
have a good enough chunk of time.
Oh, you're totally fine. One, I can do any time before 3 or after 4 on Friday.
Let's go for like 11.
That works.
It's a good time. I can like get up, but not too early.
Yeah. Um, this could also be a tentative next week question, but do you want me to redo for the practice test next Saturday, the unscored? Because that's the first test I took.
Sure.
I know it's the sample, so I thought maybe that, I don't know, unless you think I should do exam 1 or a third party, but I'm not in favor of a third party.
No, I would redo. Hmm. Actually, here's what I think. What if we redo exam 1? Just
Okay,
because I think that one was one where the cars dropped, right?
agreed. Yes.
And I think it could be helpful to see if like, I mean, I don't know if your cars will have just like magically bounced back, but it could be helpful to just like do that again and get like a sample size of 2 as to like where that cars is at.
Okay. That works for me. I think this. Okay, so I will plan on that. And then if I need to, then I can just use stuff from the sample as additional practice materials
Mhm.
as well. Fabulous. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you could always like mix and match a little bit if you needed to, but like if you like, ooh, because I know that when you first did the sample, bio was still kind of getting there too.
Mm-hmm.
So like not to have you like jump back and forth, but like if you wanted to like redo the cars for the one that was kind of weak, but then redo the science for the ones where you were still kind of like early and figuring it out, and just kind of like mush a test
I
together.
know.
You
Yeah.
can do it like that, but whatever works like most conveniently for you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. And that's next week, right? Not tomorrow. Next
Yeah.
week.
Next
Okay.
week.
Perfect.
My 9th is kind of everywhere, so I think I might have to break up the exam in over 2 days, which is unfortunate, but
Yeah. But I mean,
I'm
I think
home.
your endurance at this point isn't necessarily your weak point.
I agree. Yeah.
So I think that's a fair thing to do. And it's honestly just like, how are you doing, sitting, reading, comprehending, applying, all of that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Awesome. So we can shoot for Friday then. Let's work for like question strategy still again. We'll just kind of look at what sections, how each sections are going with like your UWorld that week, and then decide what would be the best area to focus on.
Yep. Sounds good. That'll be
Awesome.
cool.
Well, have a nice week. I will see you soon.
Sounds good. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.